Hey, there, it's me, Eden. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and visit my Patreon page for early access. Link in the comment, thanks. The school gave its blessing to the trip, and my mom and dad did, too. Dad didn't know that I would be going as Annie. He still has some discomfort around the fact that his son so easily slips into a female mode. Sarah Beth was still using her wheelchair most of the time at school, although she would get up and walk short distances. Annie didn't make any appearances in the week and a half, but Sarah Beth did buy me a pair of girls' jeans, zipper on side, for the trip. Her mom cleaned and styled my wig. By this time, my own hair was growing out to where I got the sides trimmed. Sarah's hard 1-inch growth was already thinning from the new round of chemotherapy. 2 nights before we left for Westview, she got out the clippers and asked me to repeat my barber roll. Between her and Mr. Jones, she said, there was too much hair being shed in the house. Her hair was just a little darker than Mr. Jones' fur, but they were both nearly the same length. I offered to shave mine off again, as I had done during the summer, but she insisted that I not. Every time people saw your bald head, she explained, I knew they were thinking about my bald head under my wig and feeling sorry for me. I'm really tired of people feeling sorry for me. Besides, she giggled, you don't shed as much as Mr. Jones or me. We left town very early Thursday morning to head for Westview. I was dressed in the jeans that Sarah had brought me, and the Annie Jansen Westview shirt from Julie. A large bandana covered most of my wig, so if anyone saw me they would be more likely to think that I was Julie. Sarah had suggested perfectly peachy nail polish for the trip, and so we both sported it. To get to Westview from Fort Russell without going 150 miles out of our way, you have to drive through the city where we had spent most of the summer. We had left early to have time to drop off and see Roberta at the hospital. She was out of the CCU now, and didn't have all the tubes, but she was still wired to the monitors. Annie. Sarah Beth, she squealed as we came into the room. We introduced our little friend to Sarah Beth's mom, and gave her a big helium vampire balloon for Halloween. Mrs. Holding and Roberta's mother stepped out into the hall, so we could chatter with the little girl who had received a new life with a new heart. We had lunch at one of the places we had found in the city, then headed over the mountains to Westview. Following Julie's instructions, we went first to the women's dorm and entered the athletic wing. Remember your Annie, Sarah Beth muttered. Don't ogle any beautiful bodies you see. I bobbed my eyebrows up and down. Okay, I'll only ogle yours. Mrs. Holding just shook her head, then picked up a courtesy phone to dial Julie's room. In a minute, Julie was out hugging us both. Then I looked up to see a smiling, very tall black woman walk into the room. How striking! Her hair was cropped short, following the shape of her head. She reminded me a bit of a friend of ours from the chemotherapy waiting room last summer, but this woman was taller and blacker. I thought at first she would walk past us, but she stopped by Julie's side to greet us. Hello, Mrs. Holding, she said, it's so good to see you again. And this must be Sarah Beth Holding and Annie Jansen. I'm so glad to meet you both. She hugged us all. She must have noticed the confused look on my face, because she said, oh, I'm so sorry, Annie. I put you at a disadvantage. I'm Karen Camus, Julie's roommate. Julie had told me how much fun she and her roommate had together, but she had just used her first name, accent on the last syllable, and hadn't described her to us. Karen's voice was deep and melodic, and her English was very precise. She was at least 4 inches taller than Julie and I, but very slender. The 2 roommates helped us settle into the small guest suite. It had 2 single beds and a small fold-out couch. I've heard so many wonderful things about you too, Karen told us. Your sister is very proud of you both, even though she says that she teases you and pulls jokes on you all the time. And I am proud to help you out. Yes, Sarah Beth said, thank you for helping us settle in. Karen smiled down on us. That is not what I meant. I am talking about the costumes. For the Halloween party, I wondered. Would we be wearing something African, maybe? She went on to explain. I promised to keep the costumes secret until tomorrow evening, but they are very nice and very appropriate. One of my great loves in life, even greater than my love for basketball, is theater and costume design. I am the wardrobe mistress for the Westview Players, our local college troupe. So making your costumes was a labor of love. Karen, I asked. Forgive me if I seem too forward, but where are you from? Your accent intrigues me. I am from Westview, of course, she said, grinning broadly. Actually, I was born in Zimbabwe, Africa. Soon after my birth, my parents came to this country to graduate school, and when I was 7, we moved here to Westview. Both my parents are on the faculty, so I have full tuition scholarship as a faculty child. The basketball coach wants me to stay in the athletic dorm to keep in training, and so that is paid for by an athletic scholarship. Besides, it is more fun being here with Julie than living at home. I was impressed, maybe a little awestruck at this regal young woman. She was a sophomore. In addition to basketball, track, and the wardrobe room, she acted in plays and maintained a high grade point average. Both she and Julie had started out with different roommates, but they were distracting and not well-focused or academically motivated. Keeping her grades up was vital to Julie, since her family couldn't pay the high costs at Westview. So she and Julie had formed a team that had awesome fun, yet worked at a consistently high level. Julie and Karen left us to go get ready for their game. We settled in and Sarah Beth caught a little catnap while we waited to go over to the gym. I read a little further in a Star Trek, Deep Space Nine book, reflecting that I might be a good candidate for the Bajoran clergy with their androgynous robes and pierced ears. My pag is probably pretty good, but I'd have to get a nose job. Only a few dozen had gathered for the junior varsity game. We had watched lots of high school girls basketball in Fort Russell because of Julie's involvement, so it was fun to watch the college women go through their paces. Julie and Karen both started the game. It was a fascinating study in contrast. Julie plays an intense in-your-face guard, moves up and down court with surprising speed, forces the other team to make mistakes, and is a fair outside shooter. In spite of her height, Karen moved with lithe grace, and shot and rebounded with a dancer's style. In spite of their different styles of play, it was obvious that Karen and Julie almost instinctively knew where the other was, and enhanced one another's strengths. It was a case where 1 + 1 equals more than 2. They're so good, aren't they, Annie? Sarah Beth said as Karen deflected a rebound into Julie's hands and Julie shot for a three-pointer. Yeah, I observed. I almost wonder why Karen is playing here instead of at a larger university. According to Julie, Sarah Beth reflected, there are a couple of reasons. First, scholarship basketball at that level demands a total commitment, and Karen has too many other interests, with acting, designing, and other stuff. Also, you see how slender she is. She would have to bulk up to survive the heavier physical contact at the university level, and she's not interested in doing that. I'm kind of glad she came here, since she's become a part of Julie's life. I really like her. I do too, I said. That was obvious, Sarah responded. When you first saw her, I was almost embarrassed. Your mouth dropped open. I had to fight back a twinge of jealousy. She is impressive, I admitted. But you don't have anything to worry about. I mouthed, I love you, so people nearby wouldn't overhear. Sarah responded in kind. Westview won by 11 points over their opponents from a college in Montana. We grabbed a quick sandwich for supper, cleaned up, and then returned for the varsity game with the same school. The gym was more crowded this time. Julie came by and pinned sheets of paper with her number, 23, on our backs. We noticed that family members of other players wore their appropriate numbers, too. Julie and Karen sat on the bench the first half. It was a close game, so I doubted that either of them would have much chance to play. Foul problems, though, gave them the chance to go in as a pair. Evidently, the coach wanted to take advantage of the way they played together. Obviously, they didn't dominate as they had in the first game, but I was impressed with how smoothly they fit into the pattern of play of the more experienced players. We screamed loudly when Julie spun to avoid the player guarding her and sunk her first varsity basket, and almost as loudly when Julie stole the ball as it was being returned down court, fed it to Karen, who made her first. 4 points in 4 seconds, not bad. Westview won by 3. Later, back at the dorm, the two athletes stopped by our room. Julie was beaming, and Karen's mouth wore a subtle smile. We praised their performances. Then Julie said, the coach said that we played so well, she was sure we would get more varsity playing time than we had thought. The next morning, I put on the smooth baggy black slacks and the autumn leaf blouse. I wore knee-highs and black flats, for small hoop earrings, a subtle chain around my neck, and a pin on the blouse. Sarah Beth dressed in a similarly dressy maroon outfit. Maroon was a Westview color. We were overdressed for the majority of the student body, but we wanted to look like eager prospective students. Since it was Halloween, some of the students dressed up during the day. Some of them may have always dressed like that, though. I thought the goth look was passé. I spotted 2 boys in drag and was glad that I passed better than they did. They were way overdressed and overly made up, trying to look like some prototype of a sexy woman. If Annie had looked like that, Sarah said softly after one of them had passed, we would have never made it, would we? I had good guidance, I told her. You all told me that I should just look like an ordinary girl and not go for glamorous. It worked, didn't it? Sarah squeezed my hand. Yes, it did. And I have both a fiancé and a new best girlfriend. Thanks, Annie. Please subscribe for the next part. And visit my Patreon page for early access.